Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hippodrome, Darlington, and I'd like to introduce the 140th President of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, Matt Garside.
Cheers, thanks so much, Robin. Fantastic to see you all here. Matt Garside, 140th President, as Robin has just mentioned. Now, unfortunately, my voice is kind of failing, and as Clive will celebrate shortly, I won't be saying too much right now. It was a bit dangerous to give the microphone to the President. They tend to go on a bit, so I'm going to try and cut it reasonably short. We've had a really good day today in terms of celebrating our heritage, the 200 years of the modern railway. I've been out and about, managed to shake the hands of the Duke of Edinburgh, in fact, earlier today over at Shildon. And I think seeing Locomotive 1 as the replica that was moving around this morning was fantastic to see. And the support that was kind of pouring out was also fantastic to see. A huge amount of effort has gone into that from all of our volunteer members. And I'd like to thank them. I think we should thank everybody who's actually turned up as well in terms of supporting that initiative so that we can celebrate our heritage. Now, Heritage Awards, we've been running for about 42 years now, I believe. And in that time, we've given out about 157 awards. This one with the plaques today being the 157th. So fantastic that that's continuing on. We really do need to celebrate our heritage and make sure we're kind of protecting some of these elements as we move forwards. So without too much further ado, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, who I'm sure his voice is feeling slightly better than mine this evening, to come and talk to you about what we're going to talk about tonight and to then chair panel as we move forward. So Rebecca, please.
Thank you, Matt. So I'm Rebecca Sellick, and I'm the 57th chair of the Railway Division of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, which obviously has got its heritage from the ILOCO-E here. I was just going to do a little bit of scene setting here. If we just click on to my next slide. So I'm the zeroth talk, as it were, just a little one at the beginning. And then the panel members has been advertised on the website here that should be people that you're expecting will come on to. And then there's a Q&A session. And then for those of us lucky enough to be here in person, we progress to canapes afterwards outside. So and thank you very much to all those online. And I hope that it's all working. It looks like it's working, getting some feedback there. And it's on audio's functioning. So do keep feeding back if we're not on message. Anyway. So setting the scene then, as Matt said, 200 years of heritage, we're looking at this, our title for today is On Track for the Next 200 Years of Rail. Okay, so 22-25. So my piece from my chair's address for the year, that I'm thinking around is about what's really good about railway technology. What was it that we got going on? It's this steel on steel, steel wheel on steel rail. Do you know, it still works. That 200 years on, it still works. It's very energetically efficient. It's very environmentally efficient. So we've got good economics, we've got good safety, those sorts of credentials. And I'm thinking about connections. What connections can we help people make? Well, do you know what? Railways were not the most common mode of transport in the United Kingdom or any part of the world. If you look at these, by any measure that you use, there were some other modes. And to not frame it as competitive, but to frame it as complementary. So to make the connection between railways and investment in the right mode that's most energetically efficient, that's most environmentally efficient, so we get clean air and reduced congestions, and that sort of understanding that getting electric road vehicles isn't going to solve everything, or autonomous electric road vehicles for that matter. So those sort of connections, and we've got things that we're developing in the railway industry, particularly that Louise is going to speak to in terms of these. We have these 4 criteria: carbon and cost. We want less of both of those. And capacity and customer. We want more capacity and we want happier customers. So whether they're freight or passenger. So those are the kind of criteria that we try and develop the railway with, and our railway technical strategy is underpinned by. Again, not to go into great detail, but then looking at the customers here. So the customers are freight customers, and how can we make a more connected journey, as it were, a more connected transport for freight? So some thinking about how we can make that seamless so it joins up intermodal transfers and those kind of things, and how we can do similar sorts of things by changing our technologies towards the next 200 years to join up coupling of passenger trains so that you can just have a continuous journey from your front door. So might imagine that we were going from Cornwall and we hop out the front door and we get into a shared autonomous vehicle that we've got rubber tyres, and we're not competing with these modes. We're saying that might be the most efficient mode, the most sensible thing to do. And that connects automatically with a steel wheel on steel rail thing that's going to take us, formerly known as train, but you can still, will they still call it that in 200 years? And that can take us efficiently somewhere, and we can have a space in that that's useful for whatever it is we're doing, whether we're sleeping or eating or meeting with friends or working or meeting up with other people. And it all is seamlessly join up together the people that we want to meet and the things that we want to do on that connected journey. And we arrive at, well, where else would we go? Or perhaps to Shildon, but the York version of the National Railway Museum or whatever, and then we all return to it. And that's all seamless and connected. So we drive the technology to deliver that. So that's the sort of thinking. And then what is it, the connection that's not connecting, that's not functioning in the heads here, that carbon's not costing us enough? So we changed the vision in this country from saying that smoking, for example, cigarette smoking has now become an antisocial, widely accepted as an antisocial thing. Will having a big carbon footprint be seen like that? And if so, when? How soon? And how much will that drive this connection into infrastructure investment and into national investment in that connected journey and optimise the amount of the journey that's done by rail? So that optimises that. So those are my thoughts towards a 22-25, a very summary of where we might be going. More in my chair's address, the long version of that, coming to a centre near you, or indeed online next week. But in the meantime, I really want to have some in-depth pieces from different angles of the railway. So I've invited guest speakers from different areas here. So we have delivering the future of UK high-speed rail, where Ian Smith, if you'd like to come and join me in, he's the Systems and Route-wide Delivery Director for HS2, which is a project you may well have heard of. And he's going to take us through where that's up to now and that vision for that going forwards. And it might involve one of those C's. Is it the capacity one, Ian? Possibly. So there's the clicker. Over to you. Thank you very much. Welcome, Ian.
Right. Good evening. I'm Ian Smith, and as Rebecca said, I'm the Route Systems and Route-wide Delivery Director for HS2. Tonight, I'll be talking a bit about what we're doing to engineer the high-speed rail future in the UK. Now, obviously, our project may be not quite as big at the moment as it once was. However, I think it's fair to say that we are still on a scale that nobody's seen for many, many years. In fact, when I started on the railway in 1986, along with Rebecca, it's fair to say that if someone had told us at that point we'd have seen a project like we have today, the sanity would have been questioned, and we'd have probably called for the drugs and alcohol testers, although bear in mind we'd have to wait till 1992 for those to arrive. So, as a project, we are really pushing the boundaries of railway engineering and also the delivery capacity and capability of the industry to achieve it. And I will cover part of that in my address today. So, some of the last 200 years sometimes affects what we do. But the first thing I want to talk about is what it's for. This is a slide which helps us remind us what that is all about. It's a vital investment in Britain's economic future. The railway supports that government's mission to boost growth and improve journeys. This slide illustrates the projected economic growth just in the West Midlands area from the scheme as it is now for the next 10 years. Now, I think we all know that the regenerative infrastructure effect of railways is quite powerful, possibly underplayed by economic modelling as it is expressed by the Treasury. However, I think the evidence is clear around the world, both from my career and from most of the people in this room, I suspect, that this is why railways started to be built 200 years ago, and it's still true today. that efficient mode of transport that makes it work. Capacity, the word that Rebecca mentioned already, is key to this. We are there to build the capacity to make this happen. So we'll start on the journey from Birmingham with a little bit of history. You may or may not be aware that we unearthed this when we started the work at Birmingham Curzon Street. This is what is thought to be the world's oldest roundhouse. Is at the construction site of the Birmingham Curzon Street station. It was built to a design by George Stephenson, and it was built during a previous period of serious economic growth in the city. This roundhouse was opened on the 12th of November 1837, which coincidentally is exactly 126 years before I was born, nowhere near Birmingham. So this is Birmingham today. This is where we are. So moving forward to that, you can see in the background, if you can see closely on the slide, there are cranes of other developments already taking place in that city. But I think this slide really shows that engineering complexity that we have to undertake to weave this infrastructure amongst the congested island that we have. This old congested area of Birmingham is really difficult to thread our way through. Our country is much more built up than 200 years ago, and building infrastructure in these places is really, really challenging. Any intervention to build new infrastructure has that complexity of utilities. It has highways to be modified. It has environmental consents, and it has planning approvals, and large numbers of stakeholders are required. It's a real challenge, and there are many lessons the government's exploring from our experience in this area. However, some of the solutions are down to engineering. This is one of our examples outside the urban areas. We are lower than the ground for environmental reasons than we otherwise could be. And we have many, many miles of tunnels on the route. This view of Greatworth Green Tunnel just shows the vast scale of the earthworks required to deliver what we are delivering. Backfilling around the arches has to be done very carefully, ensure the loading profile is correct. Otherwise, what might happen here would have happened at Gerrard's Cross some years ago. Some of you might remember that collapse, which caused disruption for many months and years. But this is the sort of technology we have to be very careful about delivering to prevent that environmental impact. Here's another one. Here's another great example of how we're delivering those engineering challenges. This is a viaduct which is getting pushed over 8 lanes of the M6, progressively over about 3 minor closures of that 8-lane highway in the West Midlands. We have delivered many of the major structures this way. Entire bridge structures being pushed into place for railways and for roads. It almost is engineering which used to happen once in a career is happening once every year or two. And that is a real challenge to the organisation that we've got here. In one example, motorists coming back after Christmas sort of just noticed a new bit of tarmac without potholes and a new bridge over the top of them. That's basically the outcome that they saw. Here's yet another one which looks quite incredible if you just look at this picture. This is how IMechE are building the complex set of viaducts which create the Delta Junction north of Birmingham. The crane unit in the middle of this picture adds a segment on each time before they are sort of effectively glued on the end, post-tensioned through the structure, through the cables in there, bonded together, and then sort of made effective by the fact that those 2 segments were cast together in the Kingsbury Yard, not a couple of miles away. It's an amazing system, which I think you'll probably agree. If you look at that intellectually from afar, it feels like it shouldn't work. It feels like it should collapse, but it absolutely works. This is a photograph a bit further south. This is the southern entry to the Chiltern tunnels, which are sort of about 16 kilometres through the Chilterns. These are the porous portals which are there to dissipate the energy of the rolling stock hitting that tunnel entrance. For 320 kilometres an hour is the speed we enter that longer version of this porous portal. So somebody in this room has probably already started doing the calculation as to how much slower the downline speed and wrong road speed is on this. I'm not going to sort of claim that I have done that calculation, but somebody might tell us what it is. What you also see here is some of the remains of what have been a couple of major on-site factories, which have been there to build the segments for the tunnels and the bridge and the viaduct, which I'll talk about in a minute, on site. That's a massive contribution to reducing the carbon impact and the traffic impact of this railway when it's being constructed, because the factories were effectively built on site, used to deliver that capacity, and then sort of dismantled. I can't really go to HS2 without showing you a picture of this. From the Chiltern Tunnel south, the route takes us to what is described already as the UK longest railway bridge. Personally, I disagree. The 3.4 Colwyn Valley Viaduct doesn't have a railway on it yet. It's not until I come along later and add the slab track and the overhead line on here that we consider it a railway. To that date, only will the 3.3 kilometres Tay Bridge still retain the title of the longest railway viaduct. However, I think we can probably say that we have achieved our aim of keeping up the fine tradition of the UK's railway architecture in terms of how it looks and how it presents itself. Probably not something you'd normally see on an engineering presentation, but George Stephenson probably didn't have to care as much as we do about this, but this is a wetland at Covington Wood. Engineering of the environment has been a key part of this project. We have a green corridor which mitigates our impact on the environment and on carbon. 7 million new trees will get planted along that route as we progress up towards Birmingham. It is phenomenal sort of engineering impact on its own right. But now I've got to turn a little bit to the successor of locomotive number 1. Some of you, I don't know who went to the Greatest Gathering, you may have seen this, you may have had the opportunity to get in. This is the picture, the preliminary mock-up. With deference to one of my fellow speakers, we're certainly not going to put the right colours on it, because otherwise we'd probably have to be taken out and shot, because it's a closely guarded secret within West Coast Partner, our partner who's helping us design these trains. People are changing, and so are their expectations. Our trains will need more space. People are bigger. They will need better connectivity, better accessibility, and different services. We have to judge what we are doing in this mock-up for the 2030s, not the current environment. One of the illustrations of some of these challenges is our trains operate on 2 networks, the conventional network and the high-speed network. Our network was designed with a modern aspiration for level boarding, unassisted boarding for people of reduced mobility and wheelchairs. That presents a big engineering challenge, because we have our step design, our bridge to the platform has to operate safely with both the standard network rail platforms and our 200 millimetres higher platforms that we will have on high speed too. Bridging these standard gaps between generations is something engineering wise we need to really explore how we will build a transition. So last but by no means least, I want to talk about the people. We are immensely proud of our record on diversity and inclusion. We have 30% of the HS2 workforce is female and 31% of an ethnic minority background. We have 34,000 people working on the project and 1,800 apprentices. We don't do this because it's just because it's right, but also we need that workforce to be there for the future, to build the capacity for engineers, to build the engineering that we do. We need those people. Different cultures and genders bring different thinking and solve problems differently. That has helped us move forward, and it will continue to do so as well. So engineering that future workforce growth and diversity is probably as important as all of the clever stuff we're doing in terms of the engineering. So with that, I will say thank you.
Thank you, Ian. So that's sort of scene setting then for bear in mind, working towards your questions later. That's HS2 is one particular project and very engineering based. And we're taking a different tack here and moving to have an economist with us who's experienced railway person. Louise has been 20 years, it is now, at RSSB, I think, and 10 years, 11 now, organising the World Congress on Railway Research, a great overview, not just of the UK, but of the world's railway research. And she's going to pick up very much the corner on the digital and that side of innovation, I think. Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you very much for inviting and having me. Rebecca has already revealed that I'm an imposter. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I have a very close and familiar connection with mechanical engineers. My dad is one of you. And since a very early age, he was keen to teach me all about suspension. So there I was, a little 7-year-old girl under lots of different vehicles. My background is in international economics and operational research. And you have even still my thunder telling everybody that it's my little railway anniversary is coming up with 20 years in a couple of weeks, most of which spent in research and innovation. So in reflecting, as we are trying to do this evening on the future of the railway and how it can continue to benefit its customers and change for the better the society and the environment we live in, thinking of what this means in terms of innovation is really vital. There is nothing mysterious about innovation. In every sector, in every industry, innovation is when is translating a solution into new practice. That is innovation. The solution often has an element of technology in it, but it's back to bringing it into new practice. It's fascinating. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easier. And part of the challenge that those of us working in the world of research and innovation encounter is that very often, for different reasons, rail leaders focus on today's challenges as opposed to looking ahead, as we have the absolute luxury to do today, 200 years ahead. I had a bit of a writer block when I had my hour devoted to creating this presentation, a couple of slides. So, and I didn't have, of course, Ian's fantastic picture at my disposal. So I ended up seeking inspiration to start us off with some AI-generated images. Let's see what they can do for us. So first one, there you have it, Darlington Station, courtesy of AI in 2225. If you think that is rather underwhelming, I am totally with you. And AI was so clever to read my mind and quite quickly suggest if I wanted to add some futuristic trains and architecture. To which I thought, yeah, let's give it a try, because actually that looks not only green, but yeah, what are we doing with air pollution in that place? There we have it. Accordingly to AI, more futuristic train, I'm not sure you would agree, from and some bonkers bizarre building in the middle of the station now. But yet again, AI said, do you want to do more, Louisa? What about adding flying vehicles and AI control centers? Could I resist? No. But I did ask, please make it a bit lighter and less green. So there you have it, a sunnier Darlington with flying objects. But don't ask me where the AI alleged control center is, because I'm not quite sure I can point it to you. And in case you worry that AI is something against the railway or Darlington in particularly, that is not the case. Pretty much no matter what transport you ask AI to think about, whether it is spaceports or logistic ports in 200 years from now, they look rather dreary. Now, moving into a couple of more serious observations. Where are the people? I was asking transport-related images, and there are no people. So we can do better than that. We can, I guess, beat AI on that front quite quickly, because anyone that works in transport, as we do, does know that it's all about people, what they need moving around, what they need to goods-wise to be moved for making their life better. The other interesting element, and I kind of hinted to that already with the AI control center, is that where is this digital railway? Digital elements, but by their own nature, are less good at showing off in images, which creates this interesting situation in which it becomes very much in the eyes of the beholder. It becomes very much difficult to have a common vision of what digital looks like. And there are different ways to describe it, some more useful than others. But no matter what you think is this future, and definitely digital railway we are moving towards, will look like, we must get three things right innovation-wise. And back to innovation is about changing practice, yeah? So the first and foremost, we need to focus on what society needs in general, and from transport in particularly, and as rail part of a transport system. We need to then ensure that we have a unique selling strength, unique selling points in the context of a wider transport mix. Is absolutely not about competition, as Rebecca was hinting to, but is about where are we best, at what are we best. We do have, we can build, we should continue to build on the physically grounded advantage that we have for heavy haul, for intercity travel, for suburban commuting. But what are the new, unique selling points that, because things are changing around us, we can and we should work towards? Last but not least, of course, is how do we attract the best skills, the best capability? Innovation happens when you have the best skills and capabilities that are interested in your sector, that want to work with you, that are also experiencing other sectors and the wider innovation landscape. 200 years, needless to say, they got these three things right, and rail flourished. It was quite clear society needed a transport that was faster than any horse or drone options. It needed a transport as well that was less weather dependent than road and waterways. Railway, uniquely and advantageously for its life since, went for steel wheels on steel rail, adopted and rapidly improved steam propulsion, and attracted the best engineers, the best innovators of the time. They moved from other sectors. They also went back to doing other things, and that was our big part of the flourishing. Today, we are still working with those ingredients. The rail technical strategy that was mentioned before continues to be built around not technology, not change per change's sake, but around what rail customers, the wider society and environments need. So the priorities are around easy to use, freight friendly, low emission. Any research program works, like the RSSB one, works both on improving some of our long-standing strength, and also looks into new opportunities that in some cases are true opportunity, and in other, I would say, are becoming clear needs. For example, we have been working and is a project that really fascinates me on looking at how we can start to control electric traction demand in real time. We do recognize in rail the value of academia, of supply chain, not just rail supply chain, and of institutions like IMechE to access those top skills to enhance capability. In RSSB, for example, we closely work with Ukraine, both its academic member and its industrial partners. We also work very closely with IMechE. Lots of colleagues are members, lots of colleagues contributes to the institution, and we are a proud sponsor of the IMechE Railway Challenge because it is about the young talent. It must be. What I want to leave you with is, whilst those ingredients, when presented on a Friday evening with a easy slide, looks like, yes, done, actually are really, really hard to tackle for real. And I strongly believe that all of us, individually, collectively in our organization, can do more thinking on those three basic ingredients, because they will underpin our ability to innovate successfully and with a purpose for the next 200 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louisa. And so our third and final speaker, so getting those questions gelling in your brains, I hope, very much picks up on that social force for good. So Andy Mellors, who's the Managing Director of Avanti West Coast, there we go, is going to speak to us about the force for good, particularly about the social value and the range of things in terms of that. So he has also been, do come along, is nearly 40 years a railway engineer, and has great experience of that, like many of us here. So we're back in the safe railway engineering spot, having taken the Economist Challenge. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, so as Rebecca said, I'm Andy Mellors. I'm Managing Director for Avanti West Coast, but I started my career in the rail industry on the engineering sponsorship scheme, and I'm delighted to be here this evening to talk about railway engineering as a force for good. I wanted to sort of go back to where it all started 200 years ago in the Stockton and Darlington Railway, and just remind ourselves of the transformative effect that the railways have had on society, you know, starting with that challenge of how to get coal to the waterway as cheaply as possible. And I did a little bit of research, and I read Christian Walmer's book called Railways, and I was a little bit chuckled as to how things sometimes go round in circles here. And there's a particular bit in the book that talks about, you know, trains travelling in opposite directions met frequently, arguments and sometimes fist fights erupting. There was no one in overall control. In a move that fitted the free market philosophy of the early 19th century, the directors of the railway decided that they'd not run their own trains, but they'd allow anyone to turn up and use the track to guide goods or people. So you had steam engines on freight trains, horse-drawn passenger trains. And there was a statement here which I thought was quite sort of timely, given where we are on the cusp of rail industry reform, that the lessons of the Stockton and Darlington were quickly learned, creating an integrated system with trains and track both operated by the same company. So there we go. Who says that history doesn't go in circles? But I thought it was really timely to actually remind ourselves here as the social value that the railways bring to society. None more so because the past 5 years have been challenging, particularly for the railways, on the back of what happened in COVID. And I think it's really important that we, you know, articulate the wider value that railways bring to society, rather than just straightforward profit and loss. You can see there how rail industry patronage has been really challenging in the years coming out of COVID. And of course, our customer demographic is really different these days as well. You know, the days of the 5-day commuter are well and truly gone, and our railways are increasingly dependent on leisure travel for our income. And I think, you know, I am the managing director of Avanti West Coast, but our sister organisation, West Coast Partnership Development, the shadow operator for HS2, really challenging about, you know, our customers of the future and making sure that we continue to be relevant. And the reason why I posed that question about the value of railways to wider society is illustrated here, where you could see from that chart the extent to which the orange bar government funding has actually increased as a result of the pandemic, and we continue to be reliant on government funding more now than we were as an industry 5 or 6 years ago. So I wanted to give a big shout out to the RSSB's Rail Social Value tool, which as a train operator has really been a key tool to be able to articulate the benefits that what we do and what they bring to wider society. And I wanted to spend a few moments there just dwelling on, you know, the social, the environmental and the economic impact that the RSVT now allows us to monetize. And next week, actually, I'm going to be at the Labour Party conference working there with a group that we've pulled together, working with the Campaign for Better Transport to really showcase some of the work that's going on in the industry and the wider benefits that the rail industry bring. And some of those sort of numbers there, Ian talked about the value in the West Midlands, but actually when you look, you know, across the country as to what the railway actually brings in terms of gross value add, in terms of revenue into UK PLC, you know, there are some pretty significant numbers there in terms of the wider economic value. But at a more sort of micro level, you know, the Rail Social Value tool allows us to monetize within each individual rail operator what we actually bring in terms of value to community, to education, to employment and skills, as well as workforce EDI, accessibility and the wider supply chain too. And I thought I'd just give a few examples through my career as to things that bring out those themes of the value that we bring for individuals and the community, for the environment and also for the wider economy. So there's a picture there of the Pendolino refurbishment. Our iconic Pendolino fleet was refurbished by Alstom in Widnes a couple of years ago, and last year the final train came off the production line, and that was hugely impactful, not just for the UK supply chain but also the local economy in Widnes as well. And there's a legacy benefit there with apprenticeships that have been created on the back of that programme. But also, you know, we've sponsored an Arkwright Scholar in the last year using the Small Piece Trust. You know, so again, really important that we're creating opportunity at all levels in the industry. And that's particularly a close subject for me, having come through an engineering graduate scheme. And that picture there, for a number of years, I chaired the Rail Industries Engineering Graduate Scheme, and that's about 10 years ago, where we celebrated the 50th chartered engineer coming through that scheme. I think you can just see the balloons in the background. And I think it's really important that we do promote rail as a source of really fruitful employment with a rich variety of careers that this can bring. And it's an opportunity for me to bring out a heritage photo there of a few people that you might recognise. Rebecca, our current chair, Noel Travers, the past chair of the railway division, and myself as a former chair as well. We all worked together at Wembley Depot 30 years ago. But I think that's a real illustration as to the longevity of careers and the varied careers that you can have within the industry that we are all so passionate about. In terms of environmental, it was mentioned earlier about the 4 C's: cost, customer, capacity and carbon. And earlier in my career, I worked in Manchester where the Class 323 fleet were operating and still operate to this day, the first vehicles in the UK to be routinely regenerating electrical energy into the overhead line. And a really good example there as to how innovation has delivered a benefit there, both in terms of cost by reducing traction electricity charges, but also being beneficial for the environment as well. And back in 2015, when I worked at Great Western Railway, the electrification in the Thames Valley and the introduction of a new electric fleet there, really beneficial in terms of the overall customer offering, improving capacity, both in terms of the trains being deployed, but also the ability to run more trains on the network because of the electrification speeding up journey times. And of course, an improvement there in terms of the industry finances as well as carbon credentials. Further reinforced the introduction of bi-mode trains, and we're here, in Darlington, Newton Aycliffe, just up the road, where many of those Hitachi trains were built. And certainly in my business, the introduction of bi-mode trains has allowed us to cut our carbon emissions on those services by over 2/3. And also another one that's close to me and also close to Darlington is Lumo on the East Coast Main Line, where the introduction of those services, additional capacity being provided on the East Coast Main Line, has actually helped contribute, along with LNER, to a modal shift from the airlines, which is good for the environment, but also good from a consumer perspective too. And then from an economic perspective, I wanted just to finish with a few illustrations through my career as to things that have happened to drive economic growth. I was engineering director at Great Western Railway for 10 years, but I'm conscious that there are several of the people in the room tonight that know far more about high-speed trains than I do. But back in 1976, when the high-speed train was introduced, what a transformative effect that had on long-distance travel within the UK, bringing places closer together. And, worth remembering as well, as we're in Darlington, that the 1st of November 1987 was when the high-speed train became the fastest diesel train in the world, a record that is still held today, 148.5 miles per hour achieved between Darlington and York. And talking of high-speed rail and bringing places closer together, the introduction of the Pendolino fleet, now nearly 25 years ago, London to Manchester in 2 hours, having a hugely transformative effect in terms of modal shift from the airlines, very little domestic flights now between London and Manchester, bringing those 2 key economic centres, as an example, closer together, as HS2 will do going forwards in the future between London and Birmingham. And in Avanti, we're now introducing a second train every hour between London and Liverpool, which has already helped to stimulate the economy in Liverpool and contribute towards the visitor economy there. And finally, a little bit of an interaction with my time at Great Western, where there was a lot of preparatory work done in preparing for Crossrail, but a real reminder there of a very recent project that has had a hugely transformative effect, not just in terms of journeys in and out of London, but also the wider surrounding regions in Greater London. So some good examples there, a stark reminder as to how, you know, railways can have a hugely transformative effect, whether it be the economy, or whether it be in terms of the environment, or whether it be in terms of employment and local communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Would you like to take a seat? And if Ian and Louisa can join us as well, that would be brilliant. Okay, so we've got questions coming in online that I will try and pick up. And if we've got questions in the audience, we have we need people to raise their voices and project them in the audience here present, because we don't have a roving microphone, but I will relay them to my best ability so that the persons online can hear them properly. So here we go, a bit of a question and answer session. We've got 20 minutes for that, and I see a very enthusiastic wave as a question. Would you like to give your question? Yep.
Hi everybody, David Shaw is rail engineer. Fascinating set of presentations. I particularly like what Rebecca was saying about explaining why railways are such a superbly engineered system. And one of my disappointments about Railway 200 is I have yet to see anywhere where that is clearly exposed, except perhaps for an article that was in Railway Engineering recently. But one particular thing, for example, is the way that railways spread their load. The country spends a fortune maintaining motorways because HGVs don't pay their way. Things are environmental benefits you've raised, Rebecca. Things like net zero aviation is a complete myth, and yet it's there up with all the government stuff and occasional articles in professional engineering say such things. But my question is, are we progressive enough? Are we proactive enough in terms of actually promoting and telling the world what superbly engineered system the railway is? And therefore, because it is so efficient in terms of land take, transmission of load, energy savings, and all the rest of it, it has to be a thing for the future.
Thank you, David. So just to say, and then for those of you who are online who might not be able to hear the question, I'll just relay the question part of it, which was, are we proactive enough in selling the benefits, I think it would be fair to say, of why the engineering of railways is such a good thing in terms of land take and environmental impact and the energy efficiency of railways, and how do we do that more effectively to a wider audience? Is that a fair paraphrase? Thank you. So there we go. Who would like to take this one first then? Ian, you were first up, so you want to be first on questions?
Well, I think you're probably right. I think we don't say enough about how energy efficient in terms of the moving of people and goods railways actually are. That steel on steel that Rebecca mentioned in her presentation is a key factor in how these things are very efficient. The other thing I would probably point out is, and this comes back to the integration of technology, the fact that we can electrify railways and operate on effectively zero carbon electricity in the future is a key feature of how we may go more towards zero carbon. So I know the intent is that we will be powered by zero carbon electricity going forwards. That is something that we have to think about, these integration of technologies and how we can effectively make best use of our zero carbon energy in the future. Andy, would you like to have a go?
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think we don't get on the front foot enough to promote all the good stuff that's going on, and I think the last few years have been quite challenging within the industry. I referred to coming out of the pandemic, and we hear all the stuff about how we're much more of a burden on the taxpayer. The industry has gone through some really challenging times in terms of industrial relations and operational performance. And I think, as we start to come out of that and get much more stable in terms of what we're actually delivering. I think that does give us more of a license to get onto the front foot and get cut through with those good news stories. And I think, you know, some of the stuff that I put up there in terms of the rail social value tool, some of the research stuff that's gone on, campaign for better transport and articulating the wider benefit to the economy, I think are really, really important, and we should take every opportunity to get on the front foot and promote that. The last picture I put up was of Crossrail, and, you know, I'm sure, you know, Ian will, you know, empathise with some of the challenges that are going on in the HS2 space now in terms of some of the trauma that the Crossrail project went through. But I don't hear many people talking now about, you know, Crossrail being over budget. People look at it and marvel at it and see it as a wonder in engineering, and how on earth did Central London ever work without it before? So yeah, we should get on the front foot more. We should celebrate the successes and really articulate the important role that rail can play in those important issues like moving people and goods in a cost-effective and environmentally friendly way.
Do you want to come in there, Louisa, on the social value tool? I mean, one of my questions was, is carbon costing enough? Have we got, is that a societal political thing that we need to drive in terms of how we weigh that, and in order to give more power to our elbow in selling railways? I don't know if that relates to the tool or.
So a quick answer on the tool and on that question. Clearly, there are huge debates on how to adequately evaluate carbon, and is far from being settled in any meaningful way. So yes, lots of things to do in that way. Also, when it comes to social value, I appreciate and thank you for mentioning it. I think when you look at the economist world, there are still lots of debates on how actually those figures can and should be used. So space there. I just wanted to come back, Rebecca, on celebrating success. No, we don't do enough. We tend to say we are terrible at innovation and not comparing like for like when we compare ourselves to other sectors. So we shouldn't fall into that trap. Doesn't help us getting any of our important messages to government. The other bit that we are not good enough in succeeding with that message landing is we don't future look. So, you know, good that we celebrate successes. They should also to land in the government and in the people imagination have this future looking aspect. Last bit, particularly on the engineering point, and it's something that I constantly chase my team to do more, is trying to bring it out, trying to show in a simple visual way. Again, are we good enough with that? I'm questioning my own kind of, you know, research. How can we express certain concepts better and land them? So celebration successes, absolutely, but let's do it as well in a future-looking way, and with that, capturing with an image.
Thank you. Yes, so I just wanted to pick up one of the questions online, which has been in this area where Mick James is asking, he's making the comment that we've been speaking to the already converted this evening. Are there any people who hate railways out there? But how do we get the media, and there was a journalist earlier, to promote the message? And maybe it's that simple messaging that Louisa was referring to, and saying the comment that Ian has explained all the good that HS2 is doing and will provide, but the thing that the media keep repeating is the £10 million bat tunnel. So how to get to reframe that is more of a statement than a question that you had that sort of comes into that play there. And we have another question online that I'd like to take, and then there's a question here. So the question online that's of a different frame is from Temitope Afolabi, who's asking, in delivering social value and creating the modal shift, how do we ensure that the right price structure is in there for passengers? So essentially, so we make the right choices as a public. So it's a slightly different thing from selling the messaging. It's the pricing structure he's asking about. Yes, I think we don't. This is outside the engineering space. We need the professional in this one.
Well, we haven't got right simple things like road charging, and carbon is just a similar headache, just with a few power on top. So yes, I think that the challenge is back to the message being compelling so that it's acceptable, which is really where, whether it is the road charging or the petrol or the carbon doesn't becomes a political nightmare. Yes, in the economic circle there are debates. Yes, it's very easy to fall into double counting and harder to do it right. But it's not the economics that is the problem. The problem is the political messaging. And I stopped studying politics in year one of uni, so I'm not going to continue and there answering that one.
Any more on that one? Engineers wanting to talk politics or economics?
Yeah, I guess there's probably two things I'd observe, Rebecca. I sort of put the chart up in terms of industry finances, you know, and ultimately, you know, the industry gets its funding from two sources. It's either government or it's the user, and I think that is a fundamental question as to, you know, in terms of pricing structure, you know, the relative balance between those two sources of income. And I just sort of reflecting on the previous discussion about carbon tax. You know, one of the things I found immensely frustrating on the cusp of launching a new open access operator between London and Edinburgh 4 or 5 years ago. You know, and London to Edinburgh is actually the biggest domestic air market in the UK. Was just at the point that we were sort of extolling the virtues of, you know, rail being, you know, having great carbon credentials. Government went and reduced air passenger duty, you know, and there are mixed messages there in terms of, you know, what do we actually want? And I think that, you know, political imperative to land the messages and extol the virtues of rail for all the reasons that we've talked about is really important, because ultimately, you know, government policy will be a huge influence here, whether that's affordability, accessibility to rail, and where we stand relative to other modes as well.
Infrastructure investment, you know, I understand there's some airports in London, is it, that are thinking of being made bigger? So, you know, rather than building a railway fully, that Ian might be doing. Did you want to come in on that as well, Ian?
No, I think I agree. It's obviously very much in the political sphere as to the decisions as to how things are biased, and we are ultimately services of the political masses in this space, because as you see, because of the funding envelope we have. I think our duty in all of this lot is to make it cheaper, which makes those choices easier.
Yes. And to address, I think, as well, the road part of it, you know, the graph that I put up, there's an awful lot of road transport going on, many of it to the with heavy haul and with suburban and with intercity, those kind of classic things that railways are better at, that we could be delivering if we saw it in that positive frame. So more questions. Robin, you've had your hand up for ages, so take yours next then. Sorry. So can we do really quick fire answers? We've only got a few minutes left for this formal bits. We've got 3 questions that I saw just then.
I'm lucky enough to live on Thameslink route, and when I travel into London between St Pancras and Blackfriars, I see a little bit of the future, because the machine drives the train. We're lucky to have an automatic train operation over ERTMS digital signalling. And my question, I guess, to the panel, but it's got some segments to it, is first of all, is to Ian, you know, to say, you know, can you reconfirm that we will have automatic train operation driving the train on the HS2 network?
And then over to Andy to say, and will it also drive the train when we have digital signalling at the north end of the West Coast main line, and that the machine will drive it, it's not human being, because the machine drives the train better. And of course, I'm very interested in Louisa's view as well. There's my question.
So, sorry, just to reframe that because we don't have a microphone for the audience. So it's about automatic train operation and from Robin's experience on Thameslink. So will Ian confirm that he'll have automatic train operation on HS2? Will Andy adopt the north end of West Coast digital opportunities? And what does Louisa think? Do it in that order.
Well, first of all, yes, ATO is
Great.
still in our
So
requirement.
we're on brief. Is that all right? Brief.
I'll pass to Andy to see if he's going to use that on the West Coast.
I think we're still some way away from seeing any ETCS fitment on the West Coast main line.
But when it's there,
sorry?
when it's there, will you use it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
Great.
think, you know, we have some successes in the industry already in terms of driver advisory systems and connected driver advisory systems, and already, you know, making better decisions in terms of traffic management to deliver better outcomes.
Great, thank you. Is it a research project by any chance, Louisa? So
Not on those things, they are sorted. Some they.
It's a rollout.
My thoughts is, as always, has often been, the railway can be quite fantastic. We could offer as a bed to trial automation that in other environments is could be a lot more difficult. So are we using that? Not. We often concentrate automation, industrial relationship. Are we actually engaging with the sector? Let's not forget that automation is one of the 8 growth sector identified in the industrial strategy, and is back to, we don't feature transport or rail in that industrial strategy as a growth sector because we will never grow as the others. But do we make connection enough with those sectors? Do we raise their interest in the railway, not just on the driver aspects, but on a lot of other aspects?
yeah, so that's that very much complementary how rail can then integrate better. Thank you. Stimulating. I saw Andrew Skinner next.
Yes, thanks, Rebecca. Andrew Skinner, member of the Railway Division. For a lot of us, engineering and technology are close to our hearts, but the railway system fundamentally, Robin's question aside, relies on people. I was just interested in the panel's view as to how you see the changing role for railway people moving into the future.
Do you want to take that first, Louisa? Where's your digital piece? What does that do for people?
Well, I guess
I think you might need the mic, just might help the online folks.
where I exercise my brain more on this topic is at one end the attraction piece, and at the other end the upskilling piece. So I think that there will always be a role for human, and it's not just kind of something that is easy to say now because those pictures were awful, but it's something that is inevitable because it's where we bring creativity, where we bring the hard decision. So that kind of, if you want to, is where I come to that conclusion. I don't quite exercise my brain. The challenge to me is around attraction, because I don't think that we are attracting enough. When I speak with universities, when I see the potentials, when you go and speak beyond the rail community, I don't think that we are doing a good enough job. And similarly, when we talk about upskilling, the RTS in its recent evolution has always mentioned this digitally talented workforce, but actually I don't really see enough of an understanding and a coordination on what do we actually mean by that, what it means at different levels for different roles. So yeah, that is where we are doing a bit of thinking, a bit of work.
I wonder if you've got some examples there from HS2, Ian, with your workforce.
We've been doing an awful lot of work. We do a lot of work with schools to promote the railway engineering. We do a lot of work in the community to promote this idea. We are fighting a bit of an uphill battle, though, because the attraction of influencers as a career versus engineering as a career just looks a bit of a challenge at the moment in terms of where we are. So whilst once people are in, they tend to understand what a wonderful career railways can be for them. It's that barrier on the outside we need to work much harder to break down.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, actually, we talked about promoting the positivity in rail, but that's not more so required in terms of attracting our future workforce. It's well documented that the rail industry has got, a demographic challenge in terms of the proportion of people working in rail that are going to be retiring over the next decade. I think there are some changes in societal expectations in terms of, do people really want a job for life, in the future, which, I think poses a further challenge. I think expectations, let's not, lose sight of the fact that the railway is a 24/7 operation, and the ability to attract people into jobs that require shift work, weekend working and all that sort of stuff, I think will become more difficult. I think, those of us that have been in the industry a number of years, in our careers, we'll see how technology has developed, and that will continue over the coming years. So whereas in engineering you were going to sort of turn up with a hammer and a spanner 30 years ago, and then we've gone through the laptop era. We're talking about cybersecurity and all that sort of stuff. So the skill set that's required going forwards, and that system thinking, I think more than anything else, is really going to be important, and we have to go, looking in different places for our employees of the future.
Yeah, and I think there's some virtuous circles around railways being good things, and that perception increasing, and that being attractive then for people to join us. Stephen Thompson, should we have one more question? And I saw your hand. Is it still a relevant hand? And you're local, so we should definitely take it, shouldn't we?
Questions and discussions tonight. We do have to promote ourselves, as David Shutt said earlier on. My question really is, who to? And I'll get to the actual question very, very quickly. Over 200 years, we have gone through private industry and public industry. That may have changed very recently, but that is not a new phenomenon. Changed between the two. I'll discuss the benefits of investment in rail, and we have an audience here who will understand the benefits. And I think I saw on a slide there 2.5 times benefit of every pound invested in return.
Yeah, that's the railway industry research. Yeah.
Question is, who should we be pitching to? Would you go to Keir Starmer or Elon Musk and ask for £200 million to build the Northern Extension HS?
Great. So shall I try one bit of an answer? So the question for those online was, who do you pitch to get the Northern Extension of HS2? Do you pitch to Keir Starmer or Elon Musk? Public or private is essentially the question. And another sort of the answer to that, another customer set you might pitch to would be the manufacturing industry in the UK. So, and they're keen. IMechE UK, 20,000 manufacturers in the UK, brought out a report that they've been showcasing this month. They had a session with the Department for Transport last week on it. which was about, we want HS2 Northern Section, please, is a part of that. So they've researched their members and saying, what is it that you want? We want to have complementary ways of delivering freight. So they're sold, and they, as a non-railway body, are being very effective as a voice into the rail sector and the rail bit of the Department for Transport to say, we want more of Ian's Railway, for example. So that's another different bit. But the question we're asked is Keir Starmer or Elon Musk? So I know Andy's already said he's talking to Keir next week at the Labour Party conference. So we've got him covered. Who's talking to Elon then?
Well, I think I'll have to pass on this question. That's definitely above my pay grade.
Well, I will not dare Elon or touch that wonderful
You've
gentleman.
the World Congress on Railway Research in the States
Gosh, yes.
this autumn, haven't you? So.
My two kids are already terribly worried that I will be arrested. So no, but seriously, I think there is the whole world of private equity, sovereign funds. They do invest an awful lot in infrastructure. Actually, due to friends and family, I'm well versed to the fact that there are a lot of big pot of money that are looking for infrastructural investment as a secure, low return, but secure investment. If you look at what, for example, Ferrovie dello Stato have done in Italy in terms of securing investment, both from international banks and sovereign state, is that an answer, a third way as opposed to going Elon?
Very interesting, very interesting. Anyone else want to chip in on that? As we're slightly over time on that, so I'd like to move to the moment where we shimmy along and introduce Sam Marchant, who is the chair of the Railway Division Centre in this area, which is the Northeast, in case you weren't aware. And he's going to say thank you to us, I think, hopefully, if he enjoyed it.
Well, I certainly did. I think I started the day with a group of us looking at locomotion number 1, celebrating 200 years. When that was introduced, that was new technology. And again, reflecting of what was happened here with economic growth and improving economics and society. And I think what was really pleasing was that's what exactly came across in the talks today. Rebecca, your 4 Cs, although they were moving carbon, I suppose, 200 years ago, but the cost and other areas are still there, and rail as a solution to an issue is very relevant today. Ian, HS2, showing that we are still building major rail projects 200 years on, even better and bigger than Stockton and Darlington. So that was great to see, and the impact that actually has on our society. Lucia, I think the AI images may give me nightmares, but what I liked was the innovation, and actually even using AI is absolutely incredible. 200 years on, here we are now thinking about how we can use computers in a new improved way. But again, it was the innovation and what rail can do for society. You can see I've been scribbling notes. Andy, what was great to see was the integrated railway lesson from 200 years ago, and here we are again doing it. It's again a systems issue, and it requires proper integration. And again, looking at changing markets constantly, we will always need to move forward and change to reflect the markets, as we will get unknown problems as we go forward. But rail is always a good solution for that. And the fact that it has those environmental benefits, economic, environmental, social, it's all there in rail, and we should promote that, and we wherever we can, as a very good solution for society and how we can improve. So before I say we need to extend a warm thank you to this fabulous committee and this event, I've also been told that there are canapes. I think I might get told off if I don't say there's canapes, but there's canapes. Please join us for those for a further discussion. So can everyone just join me in a warm round of applause for our panel?
Thank you very much. And the canapes are just through that door tomorrow. So